Hi guys, it's me, Kylie. So today I want to talk about my June TBR. I'm a little low energy today. It's been kind of a weird weekend and I just have some personal stuff going on that's affecting my mood. I just took a bath to calm down and my hair's crazy, but you're not here for that. You're here for the books, so I'm gonna get into it. I have 16 books, I think, to share. I will start with two books that I got from Amazon. So from Amazon, and I saw both these books off of Kayla from Books and Lala, her channel. She got Upright Woman Wanted by Sarah Gailey and Felix Ever After by Case and Calendar. These are both have queer elements to them. They fall under the LGBT books. So I'll start with this one. This one is very short for starters. Very, very short. It is, from my understanding, it's about queer librarians. I put quotes because they're supposedly posing as like horseback riding librarians. It's like a futuristic Western type book. But they're posing as these horseback riding librarians who are distributing like approved materials, but really they're like some sort of bandit, I think. But it's really short. I don't really want to know much more than that. That's all information that I've seen strictly from Kayla's video. I'm going to be reading this with Brianna over at Coffee Books and Bullet Journals. She's my dearest friend. She's one of the first friends I made here on BookTube almost 2 years ago. And we've been connected ever since. I actually met her before I started my channel, but besides the point. We're going to be reading this, me, her, and Crystal, at some point in June, probably really early on. But yes, I'm excited. I've been keeping my eye out for LGBT books, especially with June coming up, and because I realized I really haven't read that many as somebody who talks about being bisexual all the fucking time. So this one. And now I'm gonna move over to the other one I showed you, Felix Ever After, by Case and Calendar. This follows a black trans man who is also gay. I am not gonna sit here and pretend like I can ever relate to that experience as a cis white female. Yes, I'm bisexual, but that's not the same thing. And I guess what really intrigued me about this one was, one, the cover was absolutely stunning, but also two, I am kind of a timid person and I'm trying to expose myself to some harder topics. So I want to read this. As far as I can tell, this is pretty darn close to being like an own voices sort of experience. Maybe not 100%, but don't quote me. I haven't done like a ton of research on all of that. So I would like to read this and get a perspective that I haven't really seen before. All right, so then I went to Barnes & Noble's yesterday. I met with somebody off of Bumble BFF. We've been kind of talking for a couple weeks and we decided that we wanted to meet up. We got some coffee at Barnes & Noble's and I got 4 books. And I will find them in my pile here. So every time I go to Barnes & Noble's, I always like make it a point to look at the nonfiction section, just because I read a lot of, I'm always on the lookout for specific books pertaining to like World War II, but I like the more niche topics of World War II. Like a while back I got a book called Blitzed about drugs from the Third Reich. But anyways, I picked up something not World War II related. I got The Invention of Murder, How the Victorians Reveled in Death and Detection and Created Modern Crime. I have been into true crime more lately than I have been in the past. This one's a little bit bigger. Nonfiction. It's by Judith Flanders. I've never seen this book before, but it really, really intrigued me. Not only was the cover really interesting, but I have been kind of interested in like the Victorian era, and I would like to learn more about that. I like kind of creepy things and, you know, death and crime and stuff like that. So this one, when I get to it, I don't know when I'll get to it, but it sounds really interesting. I might end up reading this over several months just because, I mean, I like nonfiction, but it's hard for me to like maintain my focus for long periods of times on nonfiction specifically. So I am excited about this. It really intrigued me. I saw it. I knew I had to have it. So I got a Lush and Seething Hell by John Horner Jacobs. I was looking at the Stephen King section. Y'all know my favorite book is The Shining. And I just saw this like literally right next to, what book was it? Right next to, it's one of his popular ones. I don't remember what it was next to, but it was like diagonal from all the It books. It's like, it was in his OG section, not his new release ones. But I saw this cover and right away it pulled me in, and it says Two Tales of Cosmic Horror. So it's cosmic horror, and I don't know a whole ton about the horror subgenres, but there are 2 stories in here, and let's see here. One is The Sea Dreams It Is the Sky, and My Heart Struck Sorrow. So yeah, these are just some horror stories that I'm excited to read. I think having them in short bursts, especially since it's been so long since I've bothered to read any kind of horror stories. Having them shorter like that, like 2 in 1 book this size, will be kind of like a stepping stone for me to get back into it. One of these is supposed to be like a psychological horror, and the other one is more paranormal. I love this cover so much. I will never ever lose this dust jacket. It's gorgeous. Okay. Then I got Girl Crushed by Katie Heaney. I've never heard of this book before. I saw it. I've been a sucker for these kind of covers lately. I was just looking through the teen section as my friend was picking a book and I looked down on like the second to bottom shelf and I was like, I'm drawn to that. And it looks gay. And with June coming up and me wanting to read more, queer perspectives, I was like, oh, I'll get it. Why not? And I read it when I got home, like the sleeve. And it seems like one of those like just fluffy romance teen books, and I think that'll be great for number 1, when I'm in the mood for something lighter, but also number 2, when I'm in the mood for something that is queer. I'm not sure if this focuses on lesbians or if it focuses on like a lesbian and a bisexual person or anything like that. I do know that this is pertaining between romance between girls though. So the details on that I don't know. Either way, I'm down for it and I'm really excited. They are in senior year. They're getting ready to start senior year, and one of them has her life all figured out already. Things go wrong, they break up, and she kind of starts to crush on this other girl. And based on what I can tell, it's kind of like the ones that split up are kind of like really missing each other. At least that's what I read in the sleeve. So we'll find out when I actually get to reading this, but I really like it. I'm glad I'm gonna have something like this on my shelf, even if I maybe don't love this book, but we'll find out. And then let's see, the last book that I got from Barnes & Nobles is one I've already read. It is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is going to be the June pick for Literary Alliance, which, by the way, we have a Goodreads group now, and I'll link that below. You should check it out. I've already read this, but when I read it, I think last year, I didn't have my own copy. And I didn't do that because I was like, oh, I'm not gonna like it. It's not my genre. I was being a judgy shit. But I read it and I actually cried and I really wanted my own copy. So I had some money and I was like, I'll grab myself a copy, and I'm going to try to highlight some of the, as I reread this, I'm going to try to find the places that really hit me as I read it the first time and highlight those and have this as kind of like a keepsake. And of course I'll talk about this at the end of June in some sort of wrap up, but when I did originally read this, it really just helped me kind of come to peace with certain aspects of my own sexuality. And I really think that's important. I think this is an important book for clarifying a few things pertaining to certain LGBT folks. So yeah, I went on a tangent. I'm sure everybody knows what this is about, but basically Evelyn Hugo, as the title says, is kind of like this Marilyn Monroe-esque celebrity from kind of like, I think, what, 50s, 60s. It kind of goes over a few generations, but she's been married 7 times, and it's really about this journalist who's writing her story and kind of clearing up the air of who is Evelyn Hugo's true love type situation. I hope I did that justice, but I'm excited to give this a reread. And the rest of the books I got came from Book Outlet because, well, I had some money and I was like, I want books. So I went in. Some of these have been sitting in my cart for over a year. They're not as popular, and a few other, what are words? So some of these have been sitting in my cart for over a year, and they're not really as popular of a book, but other ones are a little more on the popular side. So I will start with one I've already read. I read it pretty much right as soon as my Book Outlet order came in, and that is Dry by Neil Shusterman and Jared Shusterman. They are the ones who wrote the Scythe books. I forget what the trilogy is called, but Scythe, Thunderhead, and The Toll. I have tried to get into Neil Shusterman in the past. I tried some of his older stuff and it didn't really work for me, but I'm finding that anything from like this time, which was written I think in 2018 and later, has been a real hit. And I felt very similarly about this book as I did Scythe. I was really worried it wouldn't hit as well, and it was. I'm gonna tell you more of the synopsis now because I'm starting to ramble on like this is a wrap up, but really it's just a haul. But this is about a drought in California. It gets severe enough to the point that the government shuts off all water supply. It's very intense, especially given the state of our world right now, but it's also a real eye-opener. Some crazy shit goes down. If you've read Scythe or Thunderhead or any of that, it's right up there as intense and wild as those ones. And really it's about survival during a time when society is not functioning properly. Highly recommend, though maybe wait if you're kind of like sensitive about what's going on right now and you don't think that you can handle this kind of content. When you do though, very great read, very eye-opening. This is one of the ones that was in my cart for a bajillion years. It's called Bearskin and it's by James A. McLaughlin. I am not going to lie, the first time I ever saw this book, I liked it because there was a bear on the cover. And if you don't know, and I don't think I've ever said it, but bears are my absolute favorite animal. I like the Kodiak bear. They are such fascinating creatures. I don't think this has very nice things happen to bears. It's not a Winnie the Pooh story, and I don't really know a ton about it because, like I said, I really only bought it because there's a bear on the cover. But I do remember deciding to actually read the synopsis before buying it because it took me so long to purchase this book that I hadn't seen a lot of people talk about. And it did seem interesting. I think there's something about like science or research in the wild, and there's like elements of survival and things going wrong. Like I think it involves bear poaching, which is kind of dark, especially for someone who really appreciates bears. But I want to read this, and there's a blurb by somebody named CJ Box. It says visceral, raw, and compelling, and that's the exact vibe I got when I read the synopsis. And then I have another cover buy for you, and to be honest, I don't recall much of it, but I got Dealing in Dreams by Lillian Rivera. I bought this because of the cover. I think the art is beautiful. It has my 2 favorite colors on there, which is yellow and blue. That's my favorite color combo. And I am an absolute sucker for yellow naked books. I just am. It's just so beautiful. But this is about a 16-year-old girl who is kind of lost in life, and it's her dream to get off the streets and get into a place called the Mega Towers. And I guess the Mega Towers are something that is just very, very exclusive. So it's kind of hard for somebody who's on the streets to be able to get into the Mega Towers. And it's kind of like her journey of trying to get there, and she has to battle through certain street situations and do some unspeakable things in order to achieve her goal. Never ever in my life heard of this book, but kind of the same situation as Girl Crushed. This cover is so beautiful that even if I don't like it, I'm gonna keep it forever just because I am in love with this design. I just am. I don't like birds, but I do think these bird drawings are beautiful. I like the flowers with all of this down the front. It's just so stunning. I love it. This one is The Love That Split the World by Emily Henry, and I got this because I read The Chaos of Standing Still by Emily Henry, and I ended up loving it so much. And I think this is a very similar story. It's like a YA romantic type book with some magical elements. I really hope it stands up. I don't know if this was published before or after Chaos of Standing Still, but I hope because it's so similar that it does stand up. I did try to read another book by her, and it just didn't do that much for me. But I'm hoping this one will, because it sounds like it's a similar read, and I still have very fond memories of reading The Chaos of Standing Still. And I didn't hate the writing in the one that I didn't hate the writing in the one that didn't do it for me. It was more the storyline that wasn't working. So I'm hoping this one will work. And then I finally got on board and picked up Sadie by Courtney Summers. Everybody at this point and their moms knows about what Sadie's about. This girl goes missing. Her sister's trying to figure out what happened and where she went. Alongside that, there is a podcast that is like a true crime podcast that is kind of following the story about it, updating with news about her sister's disappearance. That's all I care to know about this, but I can't believe it took me this long to get a copy of this. And I can't decide if I want to get a hold of the audiobook for it, because I heard that is better than reading it physically by some trusted sources. I'm not sure. Maybe I'll try the audiobook and read along as I'm listening. But either way, it's about time. It's time that I just get on this bandwagon and check this out for myself. And then I picked up, I think it's a middle grade book, but it's Beyond the Bright Sea by Lauren Wolk. And it says 12-year-old Crow has lived her entire life on a tiny isolated piece of the sparkly beautiful Elizabeth Islands in Massachusetts. Abandoned and set adrift in a small boat when she was just hours old, Crow's only companions are Osh, the man who rescued and raised her, and Miss Maggie, their fierce and affectionate neighbor across the sandbar. Crow has always been curious about the world around her, but it isn't until the night a mysterious fire appears across the water that the unspoken question of her own history forms in her heart. Soon, an unstoppable chain of events is triggered, leading Crow down a path of discovery and danger. Vivid and heart-wrenching, Lauren Wolk Beyond the Bright Sea is a gorgeously crafted, intensely paced tale that explores questions of identity, belonging, and the true meaning of family. So I'm not sure how to describe that, but it sounds like it's going to be a very deep read. and it's not horribly long either. It's like, you know, tiny, but I am trying to branch out in what I'm reading, and at the same time also find ways to go back to what I love as well. I'm just, I don't know if you heard, but my son is back. But I'm just really trying to dive into new books. And I've been keeping my eye out for books that are not necessarily mentioned everywhere, just because I feel like we can really fall into that trap and just buy it because we saw someone on YouTube buy it. But I've never seen this personally anywhere, so I picked it up. 5 Feet Apart by Rachel Lippincott. I know this is becoming a movie. It's what I've heard other people describe as like sick lit. I don't know how I feel about that term, but these two people are, they're sick, and the girl has to kind of stay apart 6 feet away from people, and then she kind of sparks a romance with another boy, and they kind of push the limits by staying 5 feet apart. That's what I gathered. That's all I know about this. I don't know if I'll like this. I honestly, another cover by, I don't know what was up with me. I've just been like, cover looks great. So I picked it up. Still has a 20% sticker from, looks like Target. I couldn't get it off. I'll have to heat it up later if I can, but I might give this a shot if I'm in the mood for something like this, but otherwise, probably the least of my favorites out of what I've bought. Okay, so this one has been on my radar since before it came out. It is called Warrior of the Wild by Trisha Levenseller. This is about a girl who is banished from her village, and to kind of earn her trust back, she has to kill a god. Sounds interesting. It sounds kind of along the same lines of, shoot, what's that book? I never remember the name of that book. It has an axe on it too. I'll put a picture right here, but that book, it sounds along the same lines as that, and I really enjoyed that, so I thought I would try something similar. And yeah, so I got this one. And then I went ahead and got The Devil's Thief by Lisa Maxwell. This is the biggest book I got, and this is book number 2 in, what's the series called? I don't think, doesn't say, but Last Magician series. This is book number 2. I read a couple years ago The Last Magician, and I stayed up till like 3 in the morning reading that book. And I did try to read this one time. I checked it out from the library, and then I was like, well, maybe I should just read it on like Kindle or something. Then I tried it on audiobook, and to be honest, I think it just wasn't the right time for me to read that. But I do remember really, really enjoying The Last Magician, and I would love to give this one another shot and at least own it. So I'm going to give this another shot several months later. It's been about a year, and I hope that it actually works this time. But The Last Magician series is kind of about magicians, like magical people, who are in New York. They can't leave the city because there's like a dome, veil, force field around the city that traps them into the city. And it's one of those things where people have tried to go through it and get out of the city. But it's so strong and powerful that it can kill them. So yeah, it takes place in the 1910s because one of our characters can time travel, and they try to figure it out by doing a whole bunch of heists, and there's like gangs, and it's really interesting. I really liked it. If that's kind of up your alley, then go ahead and check that out, but I'm gonna give the second book another shot. And then last book, this is another one of those where I'm trying to branch out of my comfort zone, and I picked up Save the Date by Morgan Matson. I like the feel of this. This is one of those kind of matte feeling ones, but I don't really know a lot about this other than there is a wedding and things go horribly wrong, and I'm assuming there's some sort of romance in this. But I've heard nothing but great things about this. Maybe 1 or 2 people said it was kind of meh, but I'm gonna give this a shot. I've been kind of growing onto these kinds of books over the last year or so, and I would like to read this one because it is kind of popular and I've heard a lot of good things. So those are my books. I went a little nuts, especially considering for the last 9 months I haven't been reading very much, but I'm really excited to give all these books a shot and see how I like them and kind of rediscover my tastes in reading, and see what I'm still enjoying, and that's that. I am going to leave it at that. You can hit subscribe if you would like to see more, and hit the bell if you don't want to miss when I upload, and all my social media will be down below. Go ahead and let me know what you think. Do you have these books? Would you recommend any of these books, or would you tell me to kind of wait on some of them? I would love to know. Other than that, I will see you in the next one.